For great ideas and practical tools you can start using tomorrow to grow your business and separate you from the competition, you've come to the right place. If you're into B2B marketing and sales, then welcome to the one and only B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast. With over 60 and counting total years in the trenches of businesses small and large, they have a plethora of knowledge and experience that generate you more leads, capture more clients, ring up more sales. Well, doggone it, just make you more money. How about that? Always thought-provoking, yet dubiously entertaining. Please welcome to their respective microphones across 3 time zones, your co-ringmasters, the Dave Loomis, and not the rock star, Steve Miller.
Okay, so
how does that lead into brand storytelling?
Well, I think that no matter how high tech we get, no matter how much automation there is, no matter how much AI, we've said this before, there's still going to be a person, an H2H, human to human factor, but there also is an origin story to every business, right? I mean,
Yeah.
There has to be. Even if an AI, I suppose someday an AI will start their own business. They could file the paperwork and start their own business.
That's right.
They could.
Right.
I wonder if it's happened already.
If you look at the, my book Uncopyable, and for those of you who haven't quite figured this one out yet. Yes. Hi, everybody. This is Steve Miller, better known as Philly Dad Marketing Gunslinger.
Oh, yeah. We're just chatting.
That was a preamble.
Yeah. Oh, not an amble.
We were not preoccupied, but it was a preamble.
Does that mean that now we're in an amble?
We're in an amble and we are occupied. That's right. Me and my buddy, Mr. David Mayo Loomis, the voice.
I'm in the bright sunshine. If you're watching this,
that sunshine reminds me of the movie Barbie. I don't know why.
Did you go see Barbie?
Yeah, we went and saw Barbie the other night. And
I want to see it. Is it good? Do you recommend it?
I would certainly say you should go see it because it's so different from.
Yeah, I want to see Oppenheimer too. I was trying to talk.
I'm going to see him. I'm going to see him this weekend.
I wanted to see both of them together and do the Barbenheimer thing.
Do the Barbenheimer, two-step, right? The Barbenheimer two-step.
Exactly, but I being marketers, we have to appreciate what Mattel has done, which it just. Especially in this day and age when sort of, I don't know. I think it's just hard to come out with like a hardcore feminine or masculine stuff necessarily because it seems maybe, old fashioned in a way, but I'm sure that they addressed that. And I'm sure they figured out a way to.
Yeah, it was an interesting take. There was definitely a bent.
I'm sure. There
was definitely a bent to it, and I don't want to give anything
right,
away.
but just the merchandising, just the promotion and the merchandising around it, and just and they say that there's many more movies planned. And
Mattel, that's what. Yeah,
Mattel has this all planned for many of their.
Yeah, I know, but it doesn't mean they're all going to be great. Because look at DC Comics. Doing the DC universe, like the Marvel universe, and stuff. Many different storylines. Come from behind, and and these guys, we're kind of using this to morph into storytelling, and
we are. That's the theme of our
that's what we're talking about
chat today. But we're just talking. You just brought up comic heroes. I mean, that's an example of a very clear story and trajectory that captivates people. People love that, right?
The stories, in my book, in my second edition. of Uncopyable. That is
so it was copyable. You copied it.
Yeah.
To do the second edition.
The second one I copied it, but then I added something. I added a chapter on storytelling. Okay. And the power, and I called it the secret ingredient into the concept of being uncopyable. And I still believe that storytelling, copywriting is a superpower. Storytelling is the secret ingredient into, because if you do it right, when you write copy, you're writing in a way for people to it's like telling stories. And when when I said, when we were talking about
people love stories.
Yeah. Oh, you're frozen. Is that on your end or mine? Am I frozen? You're frozen.
You're not now. Am I?
Yeah, you're kind of staccato.
Still frozen?
I don't know what's going on here. Well, I on my end I look fine. On your end, you are kind of,
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Am I staccato?
Actually, a little bit, yeah.
Still, okay.
Well,
because I turned my video off.
Yeah, I know you did. All right, what do you want to do?
I could leave and come back, but then we'd have to edit.
Okay, go ahead, leave and come back, and I'll edit. Sorry, I forgot I had to look and to see to admit you.
I'm back.
He's back, and he's bad, and we are telling stories.
We're
telling stories, and to kind of pick up where we left off, I was kind of talking about Barbie, and then you started bringing up this concept of that Mattel was going to have more stories to tell, in movie land. And then I mentioned, Marvel and DC and, with the comic characters and stuff like that. But the bottom line of all of this is that storytelling is extremely powerful way to communicate with your marketplace.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think probably a lot of people have heard the advice over the years, you're going to give a speech, sort of start with a story of something to get, and even I've heard advice, start with the words once upon a time.
Once upon a time.
Yeah. I mean, you could do that. And, what if you're explaining your company, and somebody says, so what's your company all about? Well, once upon a time, there was a guy, our founder who started in a garage. And he had this crazy idea that people should have their own computer, their own personal computer. Right. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy. Now look at us.
Yeah, it was so. Yeah, I mean, it was so crazy that even Bill Gates said there is no market for personal computers.
Right. Never say never.
Never say never. So that's, the and Apple, we're talking about Apple, and Apple has so many great stories that they use to tell their story. That's really what it's all about. In fact, there's a great Steve Jobs video. If you go onto YouTube and you Google Steve Jobs videos, look for the one where he's talking to a room full of Apple employees. He's in shorts, and his requisite black, t-shirt, mock turtleneck t-shirt, but he's in shorts, and this is when he has come back to Apple after he's been gone.
Yep.
And he starts talking about how Apple lost their direction because they lost what they stood for.
Right, sort of a Simon Sinek type thing.
Yeah.
In terms of, people buy what they don't buy what you make, they buy why you do it.
Yeah. And he was saying, hey, that's what we really, we as Apple need to get back to, is we need to understand what our values are, why our values should be so important, to other people. And when our values resonate with people, then they will become our customers, and so the same thing applies all over the board. When I'm working with companies, small, B2B companies or anybody, I'm always saying, okay, all right, what's the story we can tell here? How are you personally vested in this thing? That's really what people want. People don't want you to just be out for the buck.
You mean as an employee working at this company, representing a company, if you're telling that company's story, it's not like, even if you're telling like the origin story and you're saying, oh, well, our founder, maybe it's even a couple generations before, who knows? And now it's a big public company or whatever, but that's not it. You've got to like form a connection between yourself personally. Like, why am I doing this? And why am I doing this? Because it's just a job and I got a job, or I'm so devoted to the values and the mission and the vision of this place that I spend every waking hour, except for with my family, at this company. And here's why.
Well, and I'm proud to go to work. I'm proud of being a part of this story now. That we have these values that we want to share with the world and deliver to the world. We want to deliver products and services to the world that represent these values. There's tons of companies out there that we can use as examples for this. And you mentioned the origin stories, that are out there of companies. I had a client who, and their origin story was not really unique or anything like that. It was a couple of guys who were working for a big software. Well, I don't think it was a software company, but they built they did have software as part of their. They were in the like trucking, storage industry.
Yeah.
And they were really unhappy with how this one segment of customers, portable storage customers, like when you see like a construction site, for example, and you see a trailer that's parked there, right, on the construction site. Well, that's kind of a portable storage thing.
Or portable office,
things like that. And the reason why they weren't happy was because they had both come from that world, right? They had been there. The company they had worked for before got absorbed by this big company. Then they go in there, and then they realize, well, oh, this is nice that they bought our company, but they don't really, they're neglecting the customers, right? And so they got together and they said, oh, we can do better than this, right? And so together they went and sat down and got a napkin out, probably in a bar, and started drawing a little diagram of how this might work. And then next thing you know, they've got this company going. And fortunately for me, I was a part of helping them to grow from the beginning. early, and now these guys are just, kicking ass and taking names. But when you, I mean, they have a newsletter that goes out every month, and it's been going out since I was consulting for them, and every issue of the newsletter retells the story, the origin story.
Right.
Every issue.
And why not? Because, if you've read it before, you can skip over it, or maybe you're going to read it again. But for somebody that's new to the list, they've never read it, give them the benefit of hearing it and learning about it. And, just own it all the time. Remind people of it all the time. That's who you are.
And it goes back and it goes back to, when we've talked about the branding proposition, I call it the branding promise, that we make a promise to people out in the marketplace, that, all right, this is what we stand for, and this is what we're going to do for you. And then they determine whether we are, really living that,
right. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. So that's true. That's an important part of a story, is that usually if you're gonna bother to tell a story, there has to be some sort of a point to it. The point being, you're trying to tell the story to inspire people about the vision that you had originally or still have, or what have you. But if you say, we were so industrious, and we were so imaginative and innovative, and pulled all this stuff together, and then you don't act like that,
right.
It's like, where's the beef? Where is it? So you really do have to back up the stories that you're telling.
Yeah. If you say to people, this is what we stand for.
Right.
And as I tell my clients, I want to look for stories that we can share that reinforce the promise, the branding promise, that reinforce, that show that you are walking your talk. Because obviously your customers are going to determine just by their own experience from you, but maybe new people, they won't have that experience to fall back on, so they have to rely on hearing the stories from you. Do you? I've got a couple of other examples of customers of clients who have done that. Do you have any that you wanted to share?
I've got a bunch. Just a general statement first.
Okay.
Is that I feel like B2B companies are really perfect for stories, because a lot of these companies were founded creatively, because somebody saw a need, and then there was ingenuity involved, and sometimes invention, and it ends up being a manufacturing company of some kind. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's all sorts of B2B companies. There's software now, and there's professional services and all those sort of things. And, they have their own origin stories too, which are important, or distribution, those sort of things. But I do think there usually is a need that somebody sees or wants to pursue, or some driving desire in them to do better, that motivates them to try this thing. And of course, not everything that people try succeeds, but the ones that do, then you've got this built-in story. And at least until you tank, which hopefully you won't, it's a success story. It's actually a success story.
Yes. Because
you're still in business, and you're still making something, or providing some service, or doing something. So the other thing that I went to a conference once, and one of the presenters was just probably one of my favorite sessions ever at a big conference. It was an investor relations conference, and there were probably 300 or 400, 500 people there, something like that. Big conference room. And this guy was a professional storyteller, and we had this exercise where he's like, okay, you're all at tables of 8 people, and I want you to, you're going to take a few minutes, and then you're going to think, of a story to tell the rest of the table. But you only have 3 minutes to tell the story. So the exercise takes a while. It's like 8 times 3, 24, 25 minutes plus.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's a long exercise. So you have this quiet time, people are thinking, making a couple notes, and then all of a sudden, he says, tell your stories, and you just go around, tell your stories. And then he says, look in the middle of the table, and there are these little cards that say, I like your story. He's like, everybody take one of those and then give it away to the person on the table that has your favorite story. And so you only have one to give. You're giving your own away to somebody, but then somebody is going to get more than one of them.
Yeah.
And then he just does this thing that says, how many people got, one? Raise your hand. Given to you. How many people got 2? How many people got 3? Hands go down. How many people got 4? How many people got 5? 6? Like a couple of people got 6 or 7. And then he's just on the spot. He's like, okay, you two come up here right now. Tell your story. And they tell the story, and he pieces it together, and he's like, why was that such a great story? And honestly, it comes back to all the great stories that you think about, but they have an ingredients. They have a trajectory and a structure, like the Odyssey or something like that, because there's a hero in the story.
There's a hero, a hero's journey.
It's a hero's journey, and gosh, is it a cakewalk? That's not a good story, is it? Oh, I set out to form this company, and you know what? A year later, it was on its feet. It was great. It was going great. Fantastic. That's a boring story. It may be great for the person, but it's boring.
Yeah.
Like, now, how about the person runs into a roadblock along the way, like a hurdle or something that's almost actually insurmountable. Like, this guy started to build his company, and his house burned down. Oh my God, what a challenge. Yeah, that's not all though, because when he did, the next thing that happened was, he was, working in the office, and he had all this stuff, and then, there was a flood at his office, and all this other stuff then, the guy just basically, the simple takeaway is, the more of these insurmountable hurdles that are involved, that you get around somehow miraculously or with tenacity, the better for your story.
Right.
And then at the end, you get it. And some people liked my story. My story was, it didn't have multiple hurdles, but it was how I got my job with John Glenn, the Senator John Glenn.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'll tell it in less than 3 minutes, which is I had applied for this job with a zillion other people, and I had no connections into John Glenn's office. And I was telling a friend at college about this, and she says, "Oh, I heard he's coming to Chicago." And I said, I didn't know that. Yeah, he's got to have a press conference in downtown Chicago. And I said, oh, okay. So at the time, you couldn't just look, there was no internet, right? So
Right.
I called the Chicago Tribune city desk and I said, hey, where's John Glenn's press conference going to be? Oh, it's going to be at the Westin at this time on this day. And I said, oh, okay, thanks. So I went down, I took the L downtown, walked into the lobby of the Westin, no idea where this was, how I was going to get in. And I saw these people with cameras go into the elevator, and I'm like, I'm going to follow them. Followed them.
Good idea.
Acted like I was part of their crew as they walked into the room, got into the room, sat down, watched the whole press conference. And when it was over, I looked at the long table, and there was only one way that Glenn could come out from that table. So I went over and I stood in front of the space that he was going to have to come out of. And he came over, and I just stuck my hand out and shook his hand. And I said, hey, my name's Dave Loomis. I'm applying for an internship in your office. And he said, oh, that's fantastic. Here, meet so-and-so. He's my advanced man. And, he'll take your info. He took my info. I guess they thought that was a assertive thing to do. And must have gotten me a job. but that was just one hurdle. The winners had multiple things that you just can't believe that they,
right,
that they got accomplished.
Yes. And when you learn how to, if you study the great copywriters, business copywriters, the Gary Halberts, the Dan Kennedys, Bob Bly's, if you study them and the formula that they use in just even writing sales copy is, they start out by describing, because they're trying to sell you something, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing they do is they get you to identify with a problem that you have. All right. If your company, or I don't know, let's say you're trying to lose weight, or you're overweight or something like that. And so what they'll do is they'll say, okay, in the beginning, you start talking about, did you used to be able to run, a couple miles?
My head is nodding.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you remember when you used to be able to go to the beach and not be embarrassed by taking your shirt off or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
That type of stuff. Right. Okay. Well, if that's you, then obviously, you want to lose weight, right? Or you want to get healthier. You want to get in better shape. All right. Because the problem is that you've let yourself get out of shape. Okay. So they get you to identify with the problem. All right. But then they say, then what they do is, the next step they take is they now start playing with your mind, and they say, okay, now this is how you are right now, and here's this hurdle that you have to overcome. What would happen if you didn't overcome this hurdle right now? And then they aggravate the problem. Okay, well, you might gain more weight.
Yeah, you might never want to go to the beach.
You will, and you will stop going out with friends, and maybe people will start making fun of you.
I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. How can I fix this?
Aggravate the problem. So so like even when you read sales letters, it's such a great thing to go online and just say, okay, what are the best sales letters ever written, and and they all follow the exact same thing, and that's storytelling from a sales perspective.
Yes,
it's storytelling. It's planning a story in your mind, but like the guys I was just mentioning, the client that I just, I had, they got hired, they went to work for this, their company got, bought out. So they go work for this big company. And then they realize, oh my gosh, the companies that are from the industry that they came from are not getting served right. Okay. So there's a hurdle, right? Well, now you can imagine the other hurdles they went through. How do you start a new business? How do you go out and write software? Where do you learn how to do that? And they have to overcome that, and they overcome that, and they overcome that. And that's what great storytelling is all about. And when we're talking about from a brand storytelling perspective, what we're basically saying is that you want to have a story that it tells your story, all right, or it tells a story about your company that people then see the values that your company stands for.
Right. They also remember stories, and that would appeal to somebody like Chip and Dan Heath, who wrote Made to Stick, which is a great book. And, if you can make things tangible, be able to tell your story and have people relate to it and in realistic ways, or use comparisons that they can, relate to, or that are dramatic, then it helps even more.
Yeah. So when you're getting, we tell our clients, get testimonials, but you have to tell people a format that you want them to write their testimonials in, or speak their testimonials.
Write it in a problem, and then
what was the
problem
problem
was overcome. Right. Exactly.
What was the problem, and what would have happened if you had not solved the problem?
Yes. Exactly.
That's that aggravate the problem, right?
Yes.
What would have happened?
Gone down this path.
Okay.
We would have gone further down this bad path.
Yeah. And so our company shows up and helps you to not have that problem anymore. Okay.
Yes.
And now everything is copacetic, right? And now everything is great. That's the testimonial we want you to tell.
Right. In story format, basically.
If they just talk about it, it's a story.
Yes.
We had this problem, and we knew if we didn't solve this problem, it might put us out of business. We knew if we didn't solve this problem that we were going to have, people were going to we were going to get bad reviews. So, and fortunately we found the voice, we found David Mayo Loomis, and he came in and he pointed us in the right direction, and he helped us, and he held our hand and walked with us as we went through this difficult process of fixing this problem. But if he hadn't come along and helped us, we hate to think about where we would be right now.
Yeah, and folks, don't. I don't think that it's unethical for us to write our own testimonials and then give them to the customer and say, hey, what do you, first of all, you ask your customer, would you provide a testimonial? Would you be willing to do that? They say, yep. What do you want me to write? If you give them a starter, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing.
Or you give them instructions, but I've written, and not for me, but for others, for my clients and, with their customers and that kind of thing, it saves them time, and they read it and they edit it a little bit and they say, yeah, that's absolutely exactly right. That's, yeah. And then they say, yeah, put my name to it. There's nothing wrong with that.
And just and a little tip that I discovered years ago, because my smoking hot wife Kay and I have followed what you just said for many years. Okay, where when we have asked for testimonials, and people they want to do it, but they
don't even know what to say. I mean, do you want
daunting.
1 line? Do you want 3 lines? Do you want 50 lines?
Yeah. So we used to say, yeah, okay, we will, we'll write something up, and then you
a draft,
right? And then you take a look at it. But here's a little trick that I learned totally by accident later on. I did that for a client, and then I wrote this up, and I said, just edit it or something like that. I said, in fact, here, we're talking right now. All right. You're looking at the write-up. Okay. Start talking me through from, in first person, from your perspective. Start talking me through what I wrote there. So in other words, start reading it and verbally edit.
Oh, and so they start reading it, and they're like, I wouldn't say it like that. I would say something a little bit different. Okay, what would you say? I'd say that you knocked it out of the park. I use that one, but I don't say, I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, but what happens is that the people then start using their own voice.
Right. So they end up rewriting it, and like sort of, yeah.
And it makes it well, and it's very, and it becomes much easier for them to just do that.
Absolutely. You want it to be you want it to be authentic. You don't want actually all of your testimonials to sound like you wrote them either.
No, not at all. And but the thing also with these is what, get this stuff on your website. Get these things put on there.
Get your origin story on there.
Your origin story. Here's how we got started. Where you have the about us. Most of the time I read those about us, and it looks like it was written by some English teacher, in high school English teacher who is writing about you, instead of saying my dad, our grandfather.
It may even use like impersonal pronouns, like, ABC Manufacturing was founded in way back in 1850. They began as how about we
began, right?
Just, you've got to make it personal. Nothing. Well, okay, that's not true. I was going to say nothing annoys me more, but there are things that annoy me more than this. But one thing that annoys me a lot is when I go to a website and I go to the about, or there is no about at all, or I can't find anything about who leads this company. Where is the team? Where are the people? Who leads this company? I look for this constantly, especially if I get solicited for a business. I want to see who are the people involved? What are their roles? Do they have a board of directors? Who's on the board? I'm just curious. And when there's none of that, or none of the history, it's just all, sort of like sales speak, and, we'll do this and that. I get very suspicious.
Yeah, or I'll say to somebody, if I read annoyed. Something like that, I'll often say, this looks like it could have been better in bullet points. That they did this, they did this, they did this, they did, and it's a bullet point. I don't want bullet points. I want a story. We have a client who manufactures event tents. Right. And also washers that wash these huge giant tents, right? And and they had this thing about it started in 1929, and and it was and they had the guy's name and stuff. I said, well, who is this guy? And she said, well, it's our grandfather. I said, well, it's okay. Say it's our grandfather, right?
Crazy time to start a business, right?
And he started this in 1929. Wasn't that the Great Depression? She goes, yeah, but he had to find a way to feed his family. And I said, well, that's the story.
Of course. Yes.
That's the story.
But even if you started last year, even if your business started 2 or 3 or 5 years ago or whatever, still there's a story.
That's right. There is a story.
There is a story there.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Yeah. So to bring this all into a pretty simple formula is, dependent. Every story has kind of, all right, like Dave said earlier, there's a hero. There's going to be a hero of the story. So like for the tent company, the hero was Grandpa. Grandpa was the hero.
Yep.
And then Grandpa had a problem. All right. That's the second part. There was a problem. Yep. There was a hurdle. Yep. Grandpa,
right,
needed to feed his family.
Right. So there's a quest. There's a quest. There's a quest.
And then there become, maybe there might become some other hurdles, once you start on the quest.
Of course. My quest was I wanted to get this job with John Glenn, and I didn't know where the
So you started with the first hurdle is, where is it going to be? And so you had to overcome the hurdle by and the way you did it was by contacting the Chicago Tribune.
Right. And then I had to figure out, well, okay, where is it once I get to the West, and how do I get in the room?
Right.
I figured that out by just, following the people.
Yeah. These are all hurdles. They're mini hurdles.
But
they're all hurdles.
Mini hurdles. How do I get him to shake my hand?
Yeah.
I trap him.
Well, and the hurdle of just the idea of standing there and trapping him for most people is intimidating. I am going to stand here and I'm going to trap one of the most famous people who ever walked planet Earth. All right. This is the first American to orbit the Earth.
Right.
He was so valuable to the U.S. government that they grounded him, until finally when he was like 70 something, they finally relented and said, okay, we'll let you go back up again.
Right? Yeah. Wow. Yeah. What a great, he was
so
incredible.
I mean, just that hurdle alone of just just to say that you had the cojones to stand there,
Well, yeah. And we don't have time on this episode to talk about it, but you're actually going to be doing a lot of work in this area of personal branding, but you as a person have your own hero story too. And so you can apply this storytelling to yourself and your own personal brand too.
Yeah. Well, but we all do. We all have our own stories.
Yeah. 100% unique, because no one is like you. No one had the path that you did.
Right. And so whether you're listening to this or watching this, we need to stress to you, you have a story. You have it. You might have many stories, but you probably have one big story. Okay. And use that story to establish in the mind of your moose, of your target market, what you stand for, who you are. And from that, it helps them to trust you, and it helps them to remember you, so that when they are ready to make a decision to use somebody with your types of services or products or something like that, they go, you know what? That's the kind of person, that's the kind of company that I want to deal with.
Yep. That's it. It's a wrap. End of story.
End of story.
End of story.
Love
Conclusion. It. Hero wins. I love it. And we won. And you won by listening to the B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast with Steve Miller and Dave Loomis. Join us again for another exciting episode and see what happens in part 2 of the story. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the one and only B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast, the source for B2B marketing and sales insight. If you enjoyed the podcast, please be sure to subscribe and leave these old guys a 5-star rating. Check the show notes for any links and contact information. You can always contact us by going to b2bmarketingsalespodcast.com. Thank you, and keep on marketing, keep on selling.